Of our fallen brethren. I'd like to first introduce, of course, Mike. Is it Mike or Red? I'm not sure what the name is here. We'll get into that a little later. His lovely wife, Waynette, and his daughter, Rayanne, and JR. Two wonderful, brilliant kids. Okay, we have first here, we have Dave Massing. Is kind of getting to be a tradition as you do a little kind of work our way up into what we're getting into here. We have a spell out. All right. Here we go now. We got new letters.
All right, Blake's got a short name. All right, you're not putting on loud. Here we go. Give me an M.
M.
Give me an I.
I.
K.
K.
Give me an E.
E.
Give me an R.
R.
Give me an A.
A.
Give me an L.
L.
Give me another L.
L.
Give me an S.
S.
Roll.
Well, before we get the program going too much up front here, late this afternoon we finally got clearance from the corporate lawyer to help Mike out with his new venture up in Aberdeen, Grays Harbor County. And we have just got clearance to get exclusive rights to use a commercial that our production department put together here recently. And we'll sign a waiver here that Mike can use this exclusively for the next 12 months to kind of get his business off the ground. So we have it, if you look right back at our monitor here, we have a commercial. This is for Red Ralls.
All right, come on, get over here.
Turn it up.
Brothers used cars, we know we suck. Online, one tiny bit, you'll hear it. It's on, Mr. Friesen. Good. Hi, I'm Al Friesen. Okay, I was lying. Friesen, I came in for the business. Here at Friesen Used Cars, online, we aren't kidding, we're telling the truth. When we say we have used cars in A1 condition, A2, A3. This is my wife, my girlfriend, a woman I know. He's my son. Isn't she beautiful? At Brothers Used Cars, we have easy credit terms.
Mike missed part of this here.
You gotta turn it up again.
Turn it up.
Turn it up. Mike, can you talk that fast?
Mike's not his real name.
Here, I'm your lie detector.
I can see it now. He'll get on the TV and he'll go, "Hi, my name is Red Brown."
Here, say something, Dad.
Okay, can you replay that one more time? Yeah.
Turn it up louder.
Mike, that's all yours. Okay, so we want to get you off on the right leg as you go to this new pursuit in Grays Harbor County in Washington, Western Washington. So what we want to talk about a little bit this evening is Mike has been with Payless Drug for 20 years. 20 years he's been pharmacist, assistant manager, he was on the setup crew, manager of a couple of stores, and then in the office in camera and electronics. And through that wide variety of experiences, Mike has got the talents to get into his new pursuit. So this evening we're going to expand upon those a little bit, talk a little bit about Mike. Now, I've known Mike for many, many years. In fact, when I was a student at Oregon State, Mike was running for student senate, weren't you? And there were signs up all over the campus. Who's this Mike Ralls? But it wasn't Mike Ralls, it was Honest Mike Ralls. The car salesmanship was somewhere in his future. So he's been in electronics for how many years has it been, Mike?
This is 7.
7 years, and that is some sort of record that talks a little bit about Mike, because there's been a lot of people in the past that have been electronics, and electronics is, as many of you vendors know, is a very fast-changing job, and what's new today is obsolete in 6 months, and it's a real tribute to Mike, who lasted that long and done really a pretty good job. Except for video games. Video games, he had Payless and video games when they were the hottest thing going. He had Payless and video games when they weren't the hottest thing going. We still have some video games.
Well, let's talk.
So the first person I'd like to call up this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, whatever it may be, is Jerry Edwards. Now, Jerry Edwards is a spokesman that Mike, of course, is a pharmacist, as many in Payless are pharmacists, and he has a few little things to bring to life.
Well, Mike. Mike, you know, 20 years ago, your roots go back to pharmacy. 20 years ago. Now, in the 20 years that have elapsed since Mike was a pharmacist, pharmacy has gone through the public's image from kind of a humdrum vocation up to now it's the loftiest, most trusted, most respected profession.
Here, 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 here.
There is.
Boy, how many drinks have you had?
These facts are documented. That's our document.
Another drunk in the corner.
But now, Mike, we find you coming from these lofty heights right down to used car salesman. I mean, we've seen the picture here tonight. But, Mike, I got to say that this turn of events was not unexpected from us. You know, as pharmacy went up, as I said, you went down. You went from pharmacist to Atari. Was it Atari? I forget. Is that right?
Atari, yeah.
Atari, yeah. Atari person. On right down to the depths of despair, clear on down to car salesman. In fact, Mike, I know that you probably read Business Week, but Business Week put pharmacy this last week as the most respected profession in America today. And that's ahead of the clergy, Mike. You know, they don't have anything to do with that. You know, we're number one, not number two. Right. But anyway, it's not unexpected, Mike, because as I've said, you've kind of withdrawn from pharmacy. And in fact, we see you going from withdrawing to Atari salesman, and now this last winter, there was a good example of this. Jay and I were sharing a cramped, crowded office on a Friday afternoon, and this fella comes in. This fella comes in with what we call a pill minder. It's a device that has an alarm that goes off 4 times a day. And Mike, can you help us out and program this thing so that this guy will leave our office? Because he's really upset. Mike says, oh sure, piece of cake. So he comes in, he looks at the clock, he notes it's about 4:15. It's Friday, remember, 4:15? As time goes on, he can't quite get it because the directions are written by somebody from Taiwan that didn't know any English but had a dictionary, a translation dictionary, so they gave us some incomplete directions. But Mike can figure it out, right? After 5 minutes, no cigar. Mike says, gee guys, I'd like to help you out. but I gotta leave. So
His fellow pharmacist
his
did
fellow pharmacist did
Believe
that.
it.
So we knew as colleagues, at that point, we were through. Mike Ralls didn't have anything left for pharmacy.
You don't call him Brother Ralls anymore, huh?
No, not hardly. But Mike, just to help you remember, I brought a couple of gifts here. One's a counting spatula that you can use to open letters. It also has kind of a weird thing here in case you had some irate people coming in on your used cars. And the other thing is, in pharmacy we always give a gift life everlasting to everybody that departs from us. It's good for bowel complaints, coughs, colds, bleeding, lungs, and it helps reduce perspiration. I'm sure that you'll need that in your new life. And just to help you remember your roots, I have a mortar and pestle from Eli Lilly to
Mike, keep up your license.
That was good advice.
Well, and Mike's journey through Payless Land starts in his humble beginnings in the Eugene market. And searching the office, we came up with one individual that could share some of those early experiences of Mike in his formative years, Diana Salyer.
Oh, yeah. Potty break.
You have to understand, when I moved down to Springfield, there was a new store, the Springfield Mall store, and I had been working at Salem Lancaster, and I was going to school at night, and unless I wanted to be an auto mechanic, I thought transferring to another store would be a good idea. So I went down to the new Springfield Mall store, and I worked at night, and went to school at night, worked during the day, and I got to know Mike, who was the assistant manager there. By becoming jack of all trades, one thing was the NORAD operator. And I would go around and order different things in the store, different departments. And Margot Allen, who was with us for a number of years, and some of you might know her, she was the assistant manager at the Albany store. And her husband, being a chemical engineer, made more money, so she quit her job to raise the family. But at the time, Margot and I used to go around, and Mike would order all the things in drugs and pharmacy. So he'd always take the MQ out and write down the quantities. And he'd bring back for me to punch in. Margot and I'd stand there and we'd look at it, and we'd have 12 aspirin and 36 Baccarin, and we said, geez, this is 90 days away. There's no way that that's going to be enough. So we thought, well, he must mean 120, right? So we just automatically changed, put the zero on the back of it, punch the order in, and go through, you know, and hope that we wouldn't end up with an inventory. So anyway, that went on for a long time. And one day I was working the store alone. It was on a Sunday. And I was trying to okay checks, punch in an order, do the whole thing. And I happened to throw the book down on top of the NORAD machine, and it screwed up a whole bunch of paint trays. And I'll never forget it. Mike came in, and his eyes were just like this, and the on-order list had some obnoxious amount of paint trays on it. He said, Diana, I can't believe you did this. Look at, you know, trucks are going to come in with all these paint trays. And that's before we had the Maxes, where you didn't have to worry about it. So I'll never forget, Mike was just absolutely the most conservative person I thought I'd ever met until I got to know Wynette. And then I knew that Mike really wasn't conservative because he didn't have a conservative wife. And I'll never forget when I came up to Portland in 1977, Wynette was saying, Diana, now you're going to go up there and you're going to meet this wonderful man. And she's telling me, she says, it's real easy. She said, I have to tell you how I met Mike. And she proceeded to tell me how she lived in an apartment next to mine. And every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, he would get up and he would go over the commodities, do the stock report. And there was a big window that overlooked the swimming pool. So anyway, she'd get up at 5 o'clock and go swimming out there, because that's the only way that she could ever get him noticed, is doing the stock reports, and there she is swimming at 5 o'clock. So anyway, he said after they finally got married, this went on for some time, obviously at work, he asked her how come she never swam anymore. She said, God, the idea, she didn't like to swim at the first time. 5 o'clock in the morning to go swimming was just too much. But I'd just like to say on a serious side, when I left Springfield Mall, they gave me a photo album. And I drug that out last night, and I looked at it. And in there is a picture of you, and Orrin and I, all together, and a number of other people that still work for this company. Mr. Custy, for one, and Kate Brooks, who doesn't work for this company, but her husband does.
Indirect.
Right, indirectly.
Better be.
And Griff, up at Wenatchee. And I thought, no matter what, people are what count. Everything else is irrelevant in the long term of life. And it's been a pleasure. We're going to miss you, Michael.
Well, we have several things tonight. It looked like an appropriate time. We're talking Wall Street Journal here. I have Wednesday, October 21st, last week, Wall Street Journal. And I was just thumbing through this as I've been more tuned into the market here lately, as many of us have been. And I looked here, and we're talking about page 18. The timing isn't everything, but sometimes it is. And there's a little article in here on page 18 about Toyota. And it says, Toyota U.S. unit car and truck sales. They're projecting down 8% for 1988. So, Mike, I want to get this to you. Now, can you imagine, we're associated with Kmart, and we have our budgets, we've just done some of them, come in and say, well, I don't think next year's going to be real good. I'm going to budget down 8%. Doesn't fly, let me rest assured. If you know the Japanese management style, and I think there was an article maybe last fall on 60 Minutes about they send all their middle management to these schools and they give them these medals of dishonor, and you have to do all these things to get the medals off or you get out of school. In fact, the movie that's out now, Gung Ho, has much the same thing. I think, Mike, you should be careful of the Japanese. If they start giving you medals and want to send you to school, and ask for your budget, don't budget down 8%. It'll never fly. No, I don't think so. Next on our agenda, Dan Hermitage had a few relationships he'd like to explore with Payless and Mike and experiences he's had in the past. So turn it over to Dan next.
Actually, this is the serious side of the TV. Because there's a lot of things that a lot of us would have liked to have told Mike, and truthfully, we appreciate what he's done. As you know, Mike's been with us for 20 years. Like Tom had said, that Mike went through pharmacy, was on the setup crew, ran a store, through all the store management, and then very seriously did a great job in merchandising, and we really appreciate that. We have a worry though, because Mike is now a Payless trained person, and being a Payless trained person, he probably has the best systems of inventory management, employee management, and advertising techniques, and in product selection. So I'm just thinking about some of these things, and although you've got all these tools, what's important, Mike, and what I'm a little bit worried about personally, is how you're going to present that to your new employees. I mean, can you see Mike with an OPOQ system on Corvettes? I can see Mike will have these little white chips. He'll put them underneath the tire, and it'll be a product description, item code, OPOQ, case pack. How about, this one. Your very first schematic. that you do in your showroom. You gotta send it to us. We gotta see if the red cars are all lined up or if he's got them striped or how. Some of the techniques are gonna be hard to, the techniques that you've used in Payless as far as managing your vendors and taking care of problems are going to be unique. I mean, price protection. The 88s come out. I can see you want $2 grand off on every Chevy that you still got on our floor. You think that's going to fly? Anyhow, or how about ads? I can see Mike on TV.
Oh, we already got him on TV.
Can you see an oops ad on TV 2 minutes later? No. Okay, support people. I mean, there's something that you're used to that you're going to have to build a totally new system for. If a customer calls in and says, I bought a car from you last week, and the transmission just fell on the ground, muffler fell off, doors fell off, you're not going to have Betty Blackerby just say, just send that back to the warehouse. How about those employee spats that always come up? I can see those coming up, getting on the phone, Steve Wolf, help! That won't work either. What about a leaky roof? Now you could call Boyd Semple. Now he'd take the call, I'm sure. I don't think he'd tell you quite the same thing as you expect to hear though. Or fixturing. Actually, this is one place that we've taken care of Mike. I mean, we worked on it quite a bit. We called Dana React and said, Mike is one person that really appreciates having the best, the newest fixturing in our stores, and he's going to need that in his car dealership. And be sure, you know, Mike understands that the best fixturing is what it takes to sell product. So we worked out a deal with Dana, and he is going to make any fixtures that you need. You think his price is ridiculous? Well, no, he's a profit center, you know. Now, actually, Glenn and Sue and Tim asked me to say this also. Now, they realize the contribution that they have given you as far as proofing ads. And one thing Mike has always done, he has always made a plan and stuck to it, whether he had product or not. I mean, he schedules ads, and the ads come around, and somebody's given him a call and said, hey, there's no product. I mean, but now he's had a very strong group of buyers to help him out on that. I hope your brother can. You know, most of all, one thing you've had, Mike, with us, is you've had a person like Gary Brooks, who you can lay all your problems on, and somebody whose deck says the buck stops here. You know, and if there's a problem, you got somebody to drop that problem right on. Those days have changed. But in truth, you're going to have a few problems, and you're going to have a few customer complaints. But you're also going to have a lot of other, truthfully, rewards. You're going to have a lot of opportunities that you see that you can take advantage of. You're going to have a lot of great things that come to you because of what you're doing. And I know all the group and myself personally really think a lot of you. We thank you for being our friend, for being with us. And we know you're just going to do a great job, and you're going to handle those opportunities just right.
as we continue on the evening, we're talking about some assistance for Mike. And I was going through my closets the other day, and I was wondering what can I come up with, something for Mike. And I came with a great idea. And it kind of goes with the sign here. We have to give a little acknowledgement to Tim Smith, who did our mural here. I went over there at 4:30 this evening, because I talked to Tim last week. He had the idea, the whole thing sketched out, everything he was going to do. 4:30, he hadn't started on it yet. God, Tim, we had the little sketch where you want to do it. He said, not to worry, not to worry. So I talked to him tonight. I said, God, you did a great job. But God, you sure got that out quick. He says, well, when we work with merchandise, we don't like to give it to them too soon because they start changing the thing. So I think later on in the evening I'll let Mike explain the red Ralls part. I always have known him as Mike, honest Mike, whatever. But looking through my closet, I thought, well, what can we get from Mike? So a few years back, I guess it's been many years back now, we used to have a golf tournament, Old Pales Classic. And I was just new in the office, and you had to go out and buy this sport coat. It was brilliant red. I mean, what do you do with that coat? I mean, you wear it for the golf tournament, and that's it. So I thought, Mike, red Ralls should have a red jacket. All you people should wear them. Absolutely. Okay. And if you haven't cleaned out your closet, you got the red jacket. I know you're not wearing it. Rainey wears it for Christmas. Takes a lot of ridicule once a year. Don't do that. So we're talking about the car dealership, and I thought, what kind of story can we tell on Mike? And you know, Mike is in this venture, I believe, with his brother. His brother's kind of doing sales, and Mike's kind of service department and parts, if I understand how this is going to work. And the story was told, you know, Mike has a new car all the time. You know, he got a car, he buys a company car, he trades for a car, he got a car, he buys a car, sells for more than he's always got a new car. And he has, and of course, Waynette always has a new car too. Some of his cars are pretty good, some maybe not so good. So he bought this car for Waynette to get to work. And it was a pretty good car, not too much mileage, good rubber. Emergency brake didn't work, you know. You put the emergency brake on, you drive for a while, the emergency brake goes out. It's not a tough thing to replace, but you got to get around to doing it. Mike, when you get in the automotive, you got to take care of your problems. So they have this car in Waynette. You know, they live out in Mountain Park, the hill, you know, up to the driveway. And she comes home this one evening, goes into the garage, jumps out of the car, walks up into the stairs, up into the house, it's pushed, down goes the door, and everything's cool, except the neighbor called. What, half an hour later? Said, Mr. Ralls, your car is gone into our house. And they said, can't be. Looking out the garage, doors down. I put cars in the garage. So she goes to the car, pulls the brake, gets out of the car. Car starts back down. By the time she gets upstairs, pushes the button, door goes down, car's gone. Car's down the street. Car's in the other garage. True story? And he tried to blame this on Waynette. And it was an emergency brake the whole time. He was the culprit. That's the goodness record.
Thanks, Tom.
That's right. Ray Ann told me what really happened. Because you took a lot of flack.
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did.
Dennis Lawrence called me and said he had some stories on Mike that he'd like to share with us all. And we have him, if he'd like to come up and relate that next. And I want to preface that as we're going to give everybody a chance to get up here. I have a few people lined up yet to go, but everyone gets a chance to get up here. Dennis?
I had to think about these for a while, so just in case I missed something, I wrote them down so I couldn't forget some of the pertinent points in here. I've called on Mike for about 15 years now. I'm a manufacturer's rep, and I call on him to, I represent the manufacturer and try to sell him different product lines. And the last 7 years I've called on Mike, he's been the electronics buyer. Anyhow, one thing you learn as electronics rep calling on Mike is that he was always consistent. It took us a couple, 3 years to figure it out. But once you knew what he was looking for, I mean, he had two things. You were either overpriced or you had less features. You always knew you were one or the other, maybe sometimes both. So you'd walk in, you'd see Mike, and you'd say, Mike, here's my product, and what do you think? And you'd say, well, it's overpriced. Well, you know, can I go back to the company? Maybe I could get a better price. I mean, I gave you my best shot, but you know, I'll try to do something different. He said, well, no, usually that's it. So it took a couple of years to figure this out. Now, you're not the first rep in the morning that goes in and sees him. See, when he starts like this, that's how he ends his day. If he calls, says, first thing in the morning, it's, you're overpriced. Well, that's how he's going to be all day. You're overpriced all day. So we learned to do this as reps. We started talking to each other. And we'd see the other rep waiting in the waiting room, and we'd go by and we'd say, today it's overpriced. Mike never did figure it out. He was walking in and couldn't understand. After the first rep, they knew just what he was going to ask for. So, anyhow, it's just something you had to learn over the years. The other thing was you always wanted to try to get the perfect item for tailors. The perfect item, especially the last 2 years, is an item that you can sell 1 million of, and Solander can't knock off in the Orient. And for some of you who don't know, knocking it off means that you take a sample over to the Orient and you say, okay, it costs us this much from this manufacturer, what can you make it for? So they would get these kinds of, and so you learn to do that. The perfect knockoff item I have not found yet. I've still been looking, but I'm not sure if I'm ever going to come up with the right one. But Mike's always been a gentleman about it. He has never asked me to ship the samples direct to the Orient. He gives it to Terry and
That's very
by the way. That was his former life. His new life. Can you picture Mike Ralls in his new environment as a car salesman? I was trying to figure this out, and I have a couple scenarios I thought about. Mike's doing his first TV commercial in Aberdeen. Howdy, folks. Crooked River Mike here. I've just been reading the Wall Street Journal, and I noticed in an article in here that the people in Detroit are having severe anxiety problems about the balance of payments deficit going on in the United States. Buy Chevrolet. The next morning, 5,000 Aberdeen loggers are standing around talking about, did you see the commercial last night?
I don't get it.
That's what they're all saying. He says, I never understood it. But half of them go out and buy Chevrolet. The next night, Mike's on TV again. He never was too original, so you have to realize it's him. Crooked River Mike here tonight, folks. I've just been reading the Wall Street Journal, and did you know that the Japanese are having severe anxiety problems about the balance of trade deficit going on in the United States? Buy Toyota. End of commercial. The next morning, these same 5,000 loggers standing around talking. Did you see the commercial, Toyota commercial last night? The Ralls? Yeah, I saw it. Did you understand it? No, I didn't. But half of them went out and bought Toyota. So that's how Mike gets through the first year or so. Now he's sold most of what he's got. I mean, he's having a great year. He's got a little bit more time for leisure. So I bought for Mike a book, if I can find it, from right here. The Sensuous Golfer. Now, I played golf with Mike, so this book might help him as far as his golf game is concerned. Right. The sensuous part, you have to check with Wayne on that. Anyhow, Mike, there's a book for you, and it's been a real treat. My pleasure.
As Mike goes on to a new pursuit, there is some good news for those of us in the office. Now, Mike has known by different things that he does, and one of them, one of our buyers put a gift together here for Michael. And this is probably maybe a half a day's worth of Michael's consumption. You need, Michael does have a sweet tooth, and Beach has certain samples he puts into the break room, and he says Mike by far is his #1 consumer. Mike, open this up. What can you consume in a half a day? Oh, that's not it. Rolade, crackers. He polishes his desk towards the end of the day. She never gets them at home, that's for sure. The next person we have on maybe a more serious note, Marie McMillan, has been Mike's secretary for a number of years, and she wanted to say a few things about Mike and her experiences of working with Mike. Marie? Yeah, Marie.
Don't pull any punches.
Well, I'm not sure how serious this is going to be, but I was here to greet Mike when he first arrived in the main office, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. He was really excited about here. As a matter of fact, I remember a statement that he made when he first came, was he was so happy to be back home and back in Oregon that he'd come back for nothing. I bet none of you knew that. Those of you who were paying his checks each month or each 2 weeks, probably you were missing a good bet there for sure. He quickly learned, however, what the day in the life of a merchandiser meant. Paper, computer printout, more paper, tube memos, problems, more paper, notebooks, more paper. Mike quickly learned that the initials TI didn't really always mean Tom Irwin.
A lot of times it did.
But not always. There was Texas Instruments, which was at one point in time kind of his nemesis. Mike had a way of leaving the premises, going to meetings back in Chicago, New York, at a very inopportune time, at least for me. Probably great for him, but not so wonderful for those of us left behind, because we did have some rather hairy moments. But managed somehow or other always to come out of it pretty well on top. He and I have gone through a lot of thick and thin together. Guess who was who? Mike and Waynette has really been great to me through the years. We had wonderful Christmas brunches, and I got to help Mike celebrate his 40th birthday with friends. That was great fun.
Years ago.
Yeah, that was several years ago. I also don't think that the office will ever forget the singing telegram that Mike got one day from Guess Who. She was really a great belly dancer. Okay. I really have appreciated Mike and Waynette through the years. One thing that they did for me was Mike spent a lot of hours taking pictures at my daughter's wedding, and that was, I think, an act of love. I really appreciated that. Mike, you've been a really good friend, and I'd buy a used car from you anytime, no matter what anybody says.
That's one. not in the market for a car.
I'm sending you away with some necessary things you'll probably need. I know you don't have a secretary or an office person, at least the last time I talked with you. So here's some correction tape, thin and wide, and
This is from
yellow-
someone who knows you well. She knows what you do.
yellow sticky pads, which are always handy. And here's some whiteout. Whiteout, green out, yellow, and some photocopies.
And she's not saying Mike sometimes changed his mind, sometimes he did.
Anyway, good luck to you.
Michael is also an athlete. He's always, we had corporate things, tennis, golf, he was always right in there. Of course, he's ran the Portland Marathon the last 4 years, 3 years, 3 years. And he runs with us quite often at noon. And Jim Culpepper had a couple of words, because Jim's also a runner. He wanted to impart with Mike.
Rat, Tom, you rat, I don't have anything prepared. Just because I run doesn't mean I have to speak.
He's thinking now.
Slow walk.
Slow walk.
Okay, yes, we do have a nice fraternity of gentlemen that do run, not every day, but from time to time.
What about Jim?
Tom, Jerry, Chris, yeah, nice ladies too. Mike is also one of the gentlemen who does sometimes join us. The problem is I don't have a whole lot to say tonight because we all run a little bit different speed than one another. You see this gentleman here, he is out in front of the pack. In our little group, the only way that Mike would get out that far is if he left at 10 o'clock in the morning. And we left at noon. All in good fun, Mike. Now there's another thing about Mike's running that all of us that do run know, that he enjoys the electronic gadgetry of the sport. We're talking digital watches, pacemakers, heart counters, clerical counters, firm counters, just the normal stuff that you would run with. Mike, on the other hand, goes a little bit on the extreme. We're talking mega headphone sets, dual pack disc players on the back. It's no wonder he's so slow, as he's got so much electronic equipment on him. He couldn't run if he even tried. All in good fun, Mike. From time to time, we've tried to help Mike along with his running. He tried to run, well, he has run the marathon probably more than all of us, which is a credit to himself. I've done one myself, Mike, so I know that's a real chore. But I tried to help Mike in his running, and I've tried to help Tom too, but it never seems to work with Tom. But I kind of thought Mike would be able to take along on some of the...
Careful.
Hey, it's still here. We're talking, reality here, Tom. You have to realize these things. One of my tips to Mike was that, Mike, you have to pick your knees up a little bit. Now I notice in this print, Mike, that your knees are up, and you are ahead of the pack. So, with that will be my gift to you. Pick your knees up and don't look back.
Okay, we have Mr. Savage from Kodak had a couple of things he wished to impart. I like that coat. All your salesmen should have those, Mike. He's still with it.
Great coat.
Yeah.
They'll ask me, I think, for defective returns, and I'm happy to say that. Thanks, Del. Mike, I really can't boast you. I can only say you taught me everything I know about this business, and I hope I promptly took it all. I wish you much luck. Here's a little gift from your friends at the Kodak Company. And I miss you like a brother, but I know you're going to do well. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Super nice. Thank you, Bill.
Well, very nice. Well, I've been running out of names here, and there's a carpetbagger from the South that came among our midst this evening. He shows up every 2 or 3 months. And we told him it was Wednesday night, you know, and he had everything booked, and then we got to Tuesday, he caught on to that, and we went to Monday night, and someone leaked the message, and he showed up here. And I said, well, see, sure you don't want to say anything, right? Well, just a couple things, he said, just a couple things. He sent me a reminder a couple of times this evening, well, don't forget about me, I got just a couple of things to say. So our renowned visitor from Save Mart.
Carpetbagger. Goddamn guy from out in Sticks calls me a carpetbagger.
Writes his speech on a bar napkin.
I wrote this thing listening to the last few. It was real hard. No, I want to be very serious about one thing. You know, I've been to a few of these lately, one of them being mine. And one of the things that I neglected to do when I was having my little goodbye speech was to speak to my wife and partner, who was very supportive of me all these years. And so far I've heard nothing said about Waynette. And Waynette is a very special person to me. Some of you may not know, but Waynette has a very special career that she's maybe going to be going to help Mike in the used car business, or the car business. And Mike, before I knew Waynette, you know, had mentioned to me what she does, and she works at the Children's Hospital up on the hill. And I ran into Waynette the first few times when our daughter Kimberly was up there for some special treatment. And I just want to tell all of you that Waynette deserves as much attention here tonight as Mike does. Some of you don't know what a special lady that Mike really has.
Hear, hear.
As far as Mike, I mean, my God, you know, when I'd been a merchandise manager for a while, and then someone elected to push me over there and help me work with these guys in camera electronics, you know, things like that. And then Mike always told these things about profit picture. I mean, I remember at the managers meeting, we would stand up there and Mike would talk about profit picture. I mean, my God, Tom was leading them in those days. Can you imagine profit picture with Tom leading him? I mean, one pharmacist.
You never matched my numbers.
One pharmacist leading another pharmacist, you know, and I had to come along and pick up the pieces from Atari. My God, I mean, by the time I got there, there wasn't a chance. However, the one thing that one piece of advice that I want to give Mike about going into the car business, and you know, he is with Toyota, and as I understand, I'm not as knowledgeable as Tom. I don't read the Wall Street Journal. If I had, I would have got out of my stocks.
Home to silence, please.
I may still need a job as a Wonder World manager in Mississippi. I have to be very, you very careful about what I say these evenings. You know? However, one piece of advice that I do have for Mike, because when I got over there, you know, we had this Dynatone thing, you know, and I mean that was a little bit foreign to me, and all the pieces of the business that I had helped manage, you know, up until I got into the camera electronics and hardware and some of these other things was Dynatone. Oh my God, you know, I didn't have a problem. And only piece of advice I can give Mike is don't have Terry go over and import a Dynatone car. Because if he does, you know, he's going to be looking for employment with me back in Mississippi, you know, as we run some of these Wonder World stories. So the one thing that I would say, by the way, Tom, what is that comment about those of us left in the office? What did exactly?
That's the survivors. The strength of the company.
Well, anyway.
You want to try that one, huh?
You did good. Mr. Hart's still here.
Yeah, I know.
Still here. He heard you. Okay. I'm giving Tom a bad time, and I'm giving Mike not nearly as bad a time, but I would tell you that Tom and Mike are probably the only two pharmacists in my 25-year career that I've ever liked.
Mr. Hart's a pharmacist.
Well, Mr. Hart's chairman of the board. He rose to higher levels. By the way, Mr. Hart, I don't know what that statement means. You know Tom and you know Mike. Everything they've said about Mike here. Hope to God one of these days I don't have to say these things about Tom. You know? But the only thing that I'm really concerned about here, guys, is, and I don't know, Mike probably took every bit of his equity position, you know, in Kmart and sold out, because he's been trying to tell me that for months, and to buy his car dealership. I'm still a stockholder. I wasn't smart enough, or at least I have a hell of a lot more faith in all of you people, that I still own a lot of Kmart stock. So I want to make sure that the replacement for Mike, you know, is better than the replacement for me, you know, which is nobody. I'm damn concerned. I want to tell you, I'm one stockholder who's probably going to go to the next meeting, you know, and I'm going to talk to Antonelli about my stock. You know? I took a tour of the offices, and remember the last speech I gave at one of these meetings was about, you know, these boards that are in the office, and I hadn't seen any stars. Well, I still haven't seen a whole hell of a lot. Guys, I want to see a lot more stars. I'm going to tell you, Christmas is coming. I'm in the food business, all I got to worry about doing is selling some turkeys, you know, and a couple of turkey licenses, you know. You guys, you know, need to sell, you know, a lot of this expensive goods and not get any of it back. You know, Mike and I know all about getting those things back. You know, last year we had to weather through that. Mike said he wasn't going to do that again. I didn't know it meant he was going to get in the car business. So anyway, in all seriousness, you know, my time that I spent with Mike was a very rewarding time. He taught me an awful lot about the electronic business, and I'm very serious when I say that I hope you've chosen a good replacement for Mike, because he's going to be a hard man to replace. We're going to all miss him. Thank you.
Well, since we have kind of an informal roast this evening, are there any other people out there that wish to participate? Mr. Hart?
Sure. Well, I think the experience I've had over the years of being the chairman, president, and chief executive officer of the company, I have some very enlightening things for you, Mike. I hope you, I've given a lot of advice to a lot of young people over the years. And you're going to be chairman of the board, chief executive officer, president. Now, the best damn thing you can do is get rid of the presidency. That's the lousiest position you want. The guy has to work like his butt off, you know. Now, if you're chairman and chief executive, hey, you got a piece of cake, you know. Let the president do all the work. Then you hire a whole bunch of vice presidents. I hope you do that. Then you hire a financial guy, ADP or whatever the hell he's called, and a merchandiser and a buyer. Two of the last weeks aren't worth too damn much. You hire them anyway, you gotta have them. And you learn how to buy. Now, you know in this business, if you buy by 12s, 24s, dozens, grosses, you get a better price, don't you? All right. Well, don't ever forget that. And if you package them the right way, don't ever take a car in one, get them packaged. Get them that packages 2s at a time. They ship them better. Screen packed or whatever it is, silk packed or what do you call it? Shrink packed. Shrink packed. Get them packed, shrink packed.
Sell them by the container.
Yeah. Now, you buy a lot of them. Now this is what business we've been in. You don't buy one tube of toothpaste, you buy a whole bunch, don't you? Fine. You buy a whole bunch. Doesn't sell? Want a sale. 2 for 1.
That's it.
We'll be there!
If that didn't work, you cut the price more. Turnover. Remember, turnover. You gotta have a turnover. Volume. You know, don't worry about the profit. You'll get it one of these days. Now, I advised a guy about this, about a friend of mine, about 3 or 4 years ago. He didn't want all these good points. He's not in business anymore, but he's out fishing or doing something else. But volume counts, turnover. Don't worry about the growth. You'll get it in 8 or 10 years. One of these days. And, you know, if it doesn't sell by Christmas, you put it up on the shelf, and you mark it down 50%, and you sell it next year. Isn't that the way we do it? Yeah, well, you can't afford to not be in the business and do that. And you won't make a lot of money, but you'll sure have a hell of a lot of fun.
Okay, if anyone else has anything they wish to talk, I mean, all this stuff, Mike, how can you go wrong? I mean, we got outfits for them, banners, TV commercials. Yes, you know, the fundamentals of the business. If you're paying attention, Rayanne's paying attention, she's taking notes there. She's keeping track of her dad. You can't help but succeed, Mike. We're all going to miss you, and we wish you the very best. Thank you very much.
I'm down.
I just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, don't anyone ever underestimate how much I value you people being here tonight. I mean, we got a video here, and you know, the thought of being able to see everyone years from now is just absolutely triple valuable to me. And it just means so much to see all you folks here, because you know, it's always, you're really going to be in my memory, and I really appreciate everyone coming. I want to talk a little bit about my timing in this acquisition we just did October 1st. I have actually, not too many people know this, and this is a true story by the way, but I have impeccable timing in my transactions over the years. December 28th, 1979, I made the all-time purchase of an apartment building in Moses Lake. brilliant purchase. No one could have done better, no matter how hard they negotiated with the seller, the whole bit. Absolutely brilliant. May 18th, 1980, Mount St. Helens erupts, blankets Moses Lake in ash, 24-unit apartment building. The next day, 3 occupants. Everybody else left town. I could go on and on about the insurance settlements, but there weren't any. It cost me $20,000 by the time everything all got cleared and the people back in and loss of vacancy and occupancy and all that stuff. So October 1, 1987, I finally signed this deal on Chevrolet Toyota, and last Friday, of course, the market drops 508 points. All you read about is consumers dropping purchase of high-ticket items like refrigerators, automobiles.
It went down today, Mike, down today.
Automobile, yeah. So I've continued my impeccable timing that I began in 1979. I want to say a couple other words about General Motors and Toyota. They're incredible companies about requiring forms for this, forms for that, and you learn the word encumbered, or what they would call unencumbered. All of your assets cannot be encumbered. In other words, I can't borrow the money from Dan and Tom and say, hey, I've got all this cash to go into the dealership here. Is that right? So they're really big on assets. They have all kinds of flow charts, source and use of funds, and where your assets come from. And after you get, to the batter's box and maybe even to first base with these folks, then they ask you for documentation of your assets. When you acquired them, market value, current value, all of these things. And they're really, really big on the assets that you bring into the business. And I just wanted to say that the things that I could not put down in those forms are the most precious assets that I have that have been with me for quite some time. Number one is Waynette right here, my wife for 11 years, and Rayanne to her right and JR to her left. Far and away my most precious assets, the things that mean most to me in my life. And so it's been a monumental financial transaction getting this whole deal put together, but I never want to lose sight of the fact that these are my really most precious assets. And the company I am coming from, departing Payless, a company can consider people, as all of us, as either an asset or a liability. And it's really, really neat to know that I come from a company that considers people an asset. And I will take that with me to Red Ralls Chevrolet Toyota in Aberdeen.
What does Red Ralls stand?
Oh, Red Ralls,
Red
okay.
Ralls.
Red Ralls is the name of my father, who died in 1970, and he operated a General Motors franchise. My brother is named Red. Mother never did get remarried, and so even though it's all of my money going into the deal, I elected to name it Red Ralls in honor of my father. My brother's been in the business, and Mom thinks that's neat too. So it's also a better marketing name.
What's your real name?
Mike Ralls is your average small-town dealer, but Red Ralls sounds a little bit bigger to me, so that's what we're going to call the dealership.
Like the jacket.
But like I said, I just want to, reinforce the fact that it's neat departing a company where you feel like you're an asset, and that's something that I'll always treasure. If anybody, and I know it's hard to go up to Chehalis or Centralia and then take Highway 12 all the way to the coast, but anyway, one ever goes to Westport.
Washington?
Yeah, Washington, yeah. North on I-5, left at Chehalis, or Centralia. If anyone ever wants to go clam digging, ocean fishing, or wherever, Westport and Ocean Shores are two adjacent towns to Aberdeen, and I'd be happy to have anyone and family stay with us there, or stop by the dealership, which is right on the highway. I mean, anybody can stop.
He's still got it. He's still got it.
Yeah. We're talking about light drinks, refreshments, like, no heavy sales pressure. I'll just introduce you to our closer, and he's a nice fellow. I'll be gone for an hour as you're in the room together. But, no, anyway, nice place at Aberdeen, and we really truly welcome anyone stopping here that we need. We feel good about that. But that's all I have. It's been a wonderful experience and a great feeling all the way through. The hardest decision I've made in my lifetime was departing this company. Very tough, very, very tough. I mean, the options are just always out there for any of us, but that was so hard to leave. It was really tough. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Hey, listen. A great deal of thanks to Mike and the years he spent with our company, and it's been a great pleasure for me to work with him all these years. And I think I just love to see people go out and do their thing, and you and your family, we just wish you the best of everything, really. Because I think that's what it's all about, whether you're with us or with somebody else. I think people starting an enterprise by themselves or whatever, that's what this country is all about. It really means a great deal to us. See somebody go out and start something on their own. And really, we're just so proud of you, really, to see you go out and do that. And congratulations to you and to your family, all of you. We're proud of you.
Dottie, we had to do something here.
Mike said, after 20 years, I do not want a President Ralls. That's good because we can't afford one anyway. So I really don't want a president. He says, what I want is a photo album with everyone's picture. Now this is the third one I've lost. I don't know if it's my toothpaste or my deodorant. Tell you're next.
You're next.
Thanks, Scotty. Thanks to everybody that posed for these pictures. You know, really, this is probably most of the people in the office. I know that Brad was walking around one day taking photos of everybody, and this is going to be, really triple treasured by me and the family the rest of our lives. And that's really what I wanted. I didn't want to cross Penset, didn't want to watch. I wanted the people, wanted to have photographs of you folks. And thanks so much. Appreciate the time you took to photograph.
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you all very much.